Very good evening and welcome to all of you to this 44th leadership conversation. This evening we have an iconic leader herself, Miss Santha John with us. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Miss Santha John to this conversation. Welcome, ma'am, and good evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you.
What I will do now is a brief about the kind of participants that we have. These participants look like they have joined from various parts of the country and from a variety of backgrounds, including advertising, technology, education, management at middle level and senior level, and some of them from outside the country as well. So we are quite fortunate for their continued participation over the last 11 months or 10 months now, that these uninterrupted sessions every Friday at around same time, more or less 7:30 p.m. we have been conducting, and they're supporting us. So thank you very much for this opportunity of learning from speakers like you, ma'am, and participants like all of them. What I will do now right now is I'll share my screen and I'll make a brief introduction of our leader today, Ms. Santha John. She's going to talk about there's a brand within you. It's a very, very powerful topic, and we're all quite eager to learn from ma'am. So the first 20 to 30 minutes will be a talk delivered by Ms. Santha John, followed by Q&A for the next 30-40 minutes. And this Q&A is basically templated on the questions that we have received from all the participants. At the time of registration, they have keyed in their questions and we clustered them in an appropriate manner. And those questions will be taken up sequentially. And it will be moderated by my esteemed colleague, Professor Prasan, and myself. A brief introduction of Ms. Santha John. She is currently the founder director of CoachLife.Asia and associate member of the International Institute of Coaching and Mentoring. She is trained with the Curly Martin, Platinum Level 7. He's one of the top 10 life coaches in the world and also the person who wrote the first definitive book on coaching. Very, very prestigious credentials. In terms of achievements, there are many, very few I have put together here. Ms. Santha John serves as team lead in Thrive Hyderabad, which is an international mentor-mentee initiative present in 6 countries. She is a mentor to some of the very impactful and prestigious organizations like T-Hub and a member of Indian Women Network of CII, FICCI Leadership Organization, and the Hyderabad Management Association. She initiated the Global 100 Sari Pact from Hyderabad, and today it has more than 16,000 members. Ms. Santha has an illustrious career of over 35 years as a successful serial entrepreneur and has won 3 international awards, Entrepreneur of the Year Award by HMA and a ZTV Award for the Creative Entrepreneur. She served as the president of the Advertising Club of Hyderabad twice and is the former chairperson emeritus of JWT Mindset, a leading advertising agency. She was also the vice chair of United Way of Hyderabad, an NGO. Ms. Santha John was born in Munnar, Kerala, and was educated in Delhi, Nainital, Chennai, Hyderabad, and New York. Across all these places, there were several opportunities, and she listed her important key milestones of learning as BA English, probably in Chennai, and then next learning opportunity was at ASCII, then learned account management at the prestigious DF&S, Dancer, Fitzgerald, and Sample, New York. She did several digital workshops at Hyderabad and also the popular Hyper Island workshop at Singapore. Hyper Island Toolbox is something which helps you open up and learn and connect with your organization and tap into the creativity and productivity of your team members. Ms. Santha John is married and has 1 son and is passionate about cooking, baking, yoga, and watching movies on the big screen. This is the smallest and the briefest introduction I can give to a large personality that we have today with us. I request all of you to stay tuned, stay attentive, and ladies and gentlemen, we give you one of the most iconic brands herself, She is a leader from the world of advertising, coaching, mentoring, learning and development, and many other worlds that we have to discover. Ma'am, welcome. Please start your presentation. Thank you very much once again.
I want to start by saying that it is that you are your own brand. And Mr. Sudhakar Rao suggested that it is a big, it is better to say that the brand is within you because it's more understandable. But I am sorry, I have only this one picture to hold up, and that is your own brand. And I tried very hard to change it, but it was not very successful, Mr. Sudhakar Rao. Then the second slide, okay, we all know what is a brand. A brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Okay. And there are how many people now, Sudhakar? You said 44.
No, ma'am, 73 we have participants.
73. And if I ask each one 73 people, yeah, that's true. 73 participants. And if I ask each one what is a brand, each one will have a different way of saying it, right? As what is a brand. And I just want to say, I just will give you one more definition, which is Wikipedia. Wikipedia says a brand is a name, term, design, symbol. A brand is a name, term, design, symbol.
Or any other feature that identifies one
seller's goods
or service as distinct from those of other sellers.
And which allows you to make a choice, right?
Correct.
So I will just start by saying that there are a lot of definitions for us. What is a brand? And this is Wikipedia. Wikipedia, all of us know what Wikipedia is. And personal branding. Everyone is a unique personal brand, whether they know it or not, right? And therefore, one of their leaders, one of the persons whom Mr. Sudhakar Rao had sent the mailer to, called me an iconic brand, which was very nice. And so I just Googled myself. And it's amazing what comes up when you Google yourself. Okay, so let's come to a personal branding situation. Personal branding is about managing your name, even if you don't own a business, in a world of misinformation, disinformation, and semi-permanent Google records. They say that when anything is on Google, then it is there forever. But it's not necessarily there. And so this is where I Google myself. And you can also do a Googling and just see what happens. And I want to ask you that when you go for a job interview or even a date, what happens? Your interviewer or HR has found out all about you from your CV or LinkedIn and Googled you, your name, and so be prepared. Okay? You know what they are going to find out about you even before you've met anyone. And that is what is a personal branding is all about. And I want to tell you, I'm very impressed, Mr. Sudhakar, that one of your people took a quote out of my thing and said that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Remember that. And you know who said this? The head of Amazon. Head of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, is supposed to have said this. Even I didn't know this till that mailer came and said that your personal brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. So remember that. Branding is important for a number of reasons. A clear focus for personal development helps establish your thought as a thought leader. I want to tell you about a person who is known to me. She's a teacher and she had very high credentials from international credentials as a teacher. And she was teaching in an international school here. It belongs to ISB. It belongs to ICFAI, if you want to know. And then she decided to leave. And at that time, she said, I don't need a card. I do not have nor need a card. I'm a teacher. And I said, that's not correct. Everyone needs to be contacted. And this teacher who has left that famous school needed to be contacted. Everyone now has a cell phone, and you need to be contacted as well as contact, unlike maybe the plumber or the carpenter or someone that you are at there are people who want to be reached, but they don't want to reach you, right? And they are the plumbers and the carpenters of this world right now. At the end of the day, your professional life and your personal life are one and the same. It may be uncomfortable, but it's the truth, right? It's the truth. And personal branding it's not a self-promotion campaign. Your personal branding requires you to be a great role model or a mentor and a voice that others can depend on. Others can depend on you. And that is why it is nothing about being a self-promoter. It is about people that requires you to be a role model and a voice that I think personal branding is a powerful, attractive, and visible personality and a visible personal brand. I define that as an online and in-person authentic display of the engaging aspects of your professional and personal activation and interests. As you can make out, I'm not very comfortable with this sharing of the screen. View your personal brand as a trademark, which is an asset that you must protect while continuously molding and shaping it, okay? Your personal brand is an asset that is managed with the intention of helping benefit from having a relationship with you or by being associated with you and the industry you serve. I mentioned earlier that it is not about self-promotion. Your personal brand requires you to be a great role model or a monitor, role model, and therefore it is about an asset that is managed with the intention of helping benefit from having a relationship with you or by being associated with you and the industry you serve. I can tell you immediately there are four benefits of actively managing your social brand. One is you might miss out on conversation from which you can benefit, right? Technology is constantly evolving. You don't want to get left behind, which I am. People are searching for people like you. Don't miss out on opportunities. In other words, don't miss the bus. So these are the 3 or 4 benefits that I can tell you. And then there are 8 advantages. First is that opportunity finds you. Second is, example, me. I've gotten media appearances, writing opportunities, and speaking engagements because I get noticed and folks reach out to me. Like Mr. Sudhakar, after 5 years, right? You wrote to me and you asked me whether I would do this. And you very kindly have changed the timing even for me. So there's an online networking power and in-person networking power. In other words, you can build your business. You can get hired. Remember the example of the teacher. Make new friends. You have to be approachable even to people who may be too shy to approach you. In other words, you have to approach. And there is always a Celestine prophecy. I wish I could see these, how many are there? 78 participants, Mr. Sudhakar. Has anyone read the Celestine prophecy? I won't know. Anyway, the Celestine prophecy, two people have raised their hand. That's good. That means only 2 people out of 77 people, 75 people have not read Celestine prophecy. Please read it. It's about, see, every time you meet somebody and you say, my God, isn't the world small? I know, I was just thinking about you. According to the Celestine prophecy, that nothing is there. Nothing is out of the world. Nothing is because it is, because you have, it's ordained, they say, that you have to see it, that you have to meet people. It's ordained that you see people. 2 participants raise their hand. Okay. Then finally, it gives confidence. The 8th one is confidence. And by confidence, I mean self-confidence, self-esteem, key to building your reputation, credibility, and most importantly, being successful in your professional and personal life. Write out a personal brand statement. Add a very personal tagline to your applicable to every situation. Have you seen mine, for example?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good. Because If you've seen mine, it says that be the kind of woman that when your feet hit the floor each morning, the devil says, oh crap, she's up. I mean, that is my philosophy, that you have to, but not many people may not agree with this. And you, in fact, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, she says, I would hate to be in this position, but I want to be that. And that is me. And I would say, surround yourself with top-notch people. Don't let awe stop you. Have the confidence to reach out to the best, find mentors, and do as they say. Ask for advice from everyone you stand to learn from. Ask a lot of questions and listen. Make yourself available to peers and organizations. You know, if you ask me, the one biggest advantage in my life was a lack of ego. I didn't mind asking anyone and everyone for help. It could be somebody else in another office. I would say, I didn't understand. Please explain to me. And that is what I mean by asking a lot of questions and listening. Make yourself available to peers and organizations. And lastly, I'm looking at the time, Mr. Sudhakar, because you said that I must stop within 8:30. You have to be yourself, write out your mission statement and achieve it. See, I don't think you can write out something which you have not achieved. Would you agree?
Yes.
You know, I'm a little bothered that people have asked the questions without listening to me even before. Okay. I think this is what you were saying that I had asked. I had talked about this earlier. When you say, I don't have time, think of it as 24 into 7 is 24 hours each one gets. And that is 168 hours. You take away 10 hours for yourself. That means in 10 hours, you have to have a bath, you have to eat, you have to sleep, all this, 10 hours. And that means 14 hours you have left. And when you think you have no time, fill out this 98-hour week. This was me before, okay? I was in the advertising club, as Sudhakar mentioned. Here, the bottom picture, I'm with Chiranjeevi, who's giving me something. And the third picture, I have got, I'm in a workshop, a digital workshop. And the last picture is my farewell in Dubai. And see what I evolved to. I started this Global 100 Sari Pact. I started a company called Ilanis Pro, which is health, confidence, and style with 3 people. With health is Sridevi Jasti, who you may have heard about. And she has got this company. She was my neighbor actually when I was in Jubilee Hills. And she's got a company which makes good food. And she will send it to your house so that for 30 days, we say in 30 days, we will make a difference in your life. Because 30 days, you don't have to plan anything. It will come to your house. The food, the confidence that I will give, and the style that Chaitanya, my other partner, will do it. Okay. And this second picture is a picture in Devbag, where we all went as a group to do some sightseeing. And the fourth one is a conclave where I was a participant. And the fifth one, of course, you can see what it is. Fourth one, rather, picture. Okay, with that, I'm stopping to share. And Mr. Sudhakar, you can ask your questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. I think in a manner of speaking, this has been a very comfortable and convenient way of taking around some powerful concepts that you believed in, you practiced, and you want all of us to actually pursue. So there is a brand within you that is applicable to everyone. How do we identify that brand which is lying within you? And how do you make sure that your personal brand is built? And as you said, madam, I'll quickly summarize that a personal brand is built with the purpose of making oneself discoverable in a desired manner, either offline or online or both. And there are several steps for which you have made a nice detailed presentation with examples on the teacher's example and various other requirements that you would have on networking. Continuously be network, make new friends, make yourself available for peers, but the overriding purpose here is with the clear intention of making or helping others through your personal brand is a very, very impressive statement. The other things that you mentioned about the benefits and the 8 steps are all very nice, ma'am. We all have noted down. But I would reiterate one important point is that in your personal life, in your professional life, the cornerstone has been lack of ego. Lack of ego has helped you, led you to learn more things in your work and life by asking or by letting you ask more number of questions, whoever you have come across with. I think that kind of borderless interaction with people, with the jigyasa to learn from others, I think that's a very, very big lesson. We have to be ourselves, we have to write a mission statement, and we have to achieve it. That is the way we have to progress on an axis of goals versus timeline. And the 98-hour week, where you can dedicate productively the number of hours that is available for you, is very, very interesting. Even if you take out 10 hours in a given day, you are left with 14 hours, and then 14 into 7 is 98 hours. I think that is very nice. And the impressive journey that you have made through your pursuits of creative entrepreneurship across various organizations, a renowned advertising agency that you have established, you have worked with, JWT has bought into your mindset. That's a very, very big news. And at the time, we all read about it. And several campaigns that you had championed, we have seen those campaigns. And as Mr. Mohan Guruswamy mentioned, you are an iconic brand yourself, ma'am. So thank you very much for this session. We will move into questions and answers. What I will do right now is I will request Professor Prasad to come in. A brief about Professor Prasad is he is the director for academic wing at ICFAI Group. He brings with himself 3 decades of rich experience in the worlds of entrepreneurship, professional corporate level work, as well as in the academic world. Professor Prasad is an alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIM Calcutta, and he heads the online MBA program, which we launched very recently. In fact, he's the architect of the entire program. And I request Professor Prasad to start the first cluster of questions. Thank you, and welcome, Professor Prasad.
I just remembered some things which I should have talked about, but because of the paucity of time, I was hurrying it. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that no matter who it is, it could be your driver, it could be a peon, and he is the head of his house, right? And so just like that, you will have everyone build something in yourself. He may be very mild to you, but he's like a Rakshas at home. Mr. Prasad, you can ask your question.
Professor Prasad, please.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Ma'am, the first set of questions is more about the self.
Yeah.
And I think the first one is about what inspired you to be a life coach. I think people have also read your background. And apart from listening to it here, and I think one of the questions that has come up first thing is, what inspired you to be a life coach?
What inspired me was that I have been coaching all my life, you know. In other words, this is what I have been doing, 500 hours if you consider it. So what is 50 hours as coaching? Nothing for me. And that is why I went to London for one reason, because it was at the end of my life almost. I was getting not retired, but rewired. And therefore, I wanted to go to the best. And that is why I went to London to do this course. And as Curly said, I have done a platinum level 7 with her personally, so that I could get the benefit of one of the top world's coaches. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. What I could gather from that is that the nature of your work in the many decades that you've spent in industry, in entrepreneurship, is essentially focused around coaching. And therefore,
Yes.
you wanted to take it to the next level, and you wanted to see how it could be organized in a better fashion with professionals. And then you went ahead and did that. And you're doing that. I mean, you're practicing it still. Thank you, ma'am. The next question is about how can one align the values one is brought up with, the personal brand, the point that you discussed, and the professional demands at work? How do you align this?
I don't think I understand it, but what is the question really? How do you align means?
Yeah, I think, from the questioners or multiple questioners' point of view, one has personal values, the personal values that one brings because of one's upbringing.
Yes.
Then one faces professional demands. It's not always that things are immediately matching. And one has the personal brand. I mean, so how do you align this values, bring it into the brand, and bring or balance it with the brand, and then meet the demands of professional work? What are the inputs or insights?
One of the questions that I've been asked in advertising, for example, is advertising really true advertising? Isn't there a lot of falsehood in it? And I would say that, of course, there are. But if you want to be really successful, you have to be truthful. And by truthful, I mean that it's all right to show a man cleaning vessels in the kitchen. But is that reality? It's not. It's not reality. So you have to stick to reality. I mean, we are not saying that we are changing the world. So I hope I have answered this question by giving some examples of my own life, in which case I am saying that unless you are truthful, unless you talk about what is correct, no campaign is going to work. Do you agree with me, Mr. Prasad?
Certainly, ma'am. I think, this is also about certain type of authenticity in what one is trying to project and communicate. I think that brings us to that important point of authenticity. There may be many things that we do, but there are certain dominant, values that we represent or beliefs that we have, and that what we are talking about as that personal brand needs to align to that, and we have to project that. Right? That is what I understood, ma'am.
And I don't want to say this very publicly, but this thing about taking black money. When we sold our house, we said we cannot because we don't know what to do with it. And many people thought my husband was in some kind of government job. Like, I'm not saying that all government is good, but I gave the impression that I'm married to someone, or we are both. What was the term they said? Something to do with income tax or internal revenue or something like that. So we were known for that, And I hope this is not too public a place, but when we sold our house and came to this beautiful flat in which I am sitting now, and that is it, So you don't have to do everything that other people do.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. I think we are getting, more illustration about, how to get there, though things are not, may not necessarily be 100% aligned.
Yes.
I think the direction is clear here. I think another important part of this question is, this has also been asked by a set of people, is when there are differences, between your self-concept, how do you identify and resolve this kind of difference you have between your own self-concept and the brand image that you are perceived as, what you're seen by others as?
Can you give an example? I was talking about, for example, let's take an example of a Coca-Cola. Okay, the more affluent you are, the more you will give your children a bottle of Coke. But you will also realize that Coke is not very good for children because of the sugar content and things like that. And therefore, I think our biggest challenge in Andhra Pradesh was that we were not able to drive this Coca-Cola home consumption. That means huge bottles of Coke in the fridge. If there is a Coke bottle, children are bound to drink it up. But is it good for them is the question.
Yes, I think you have brought it out from a brand point of view, a well-known brand point of view. And I think you also identified the challenge which you had, which which kind of showed the gap between what the brand, the brand projected itself as well as the consumer and what the consumer thought, and the gap between these two.
Yes.
So what
And
you're also, yeah, yes, ma'am.
And guess what Pepsi did? Pepsi has gone on to making other food, other drinks, which is not bad. And in fact, I was part of a Pepsi campaign where they were going to do something for the government of Andhra Pradesh with biscuits. And the biscuits have protein in it, as you know. And if a child has a biscuit instead of whatever, it's good for them. And this is what was being promoted by Pepsi.
I think what I can also understand from this is that there was a Pepsi way of tackling that dissonance.
Yes, correct.
And they brought in new product lines,
yes,
which focused on health, which was a cause of concern for many of their consumers, and therefore the consumers had a choice.
Correct.
Not necessarily take a particular type of drink, but have choices in doing many others. Yes, I think that's a good illustration of how one can reconcile. There's always space to move around what one is talking about and yet remain consistent within oneself. Okay, ma'am. The next question is, to some extent you have responded to this, but there are many people who have asked this question. How important and authentic is the brand you, and can it be quantified? I mean, how important and is that you have first is how important is the brand you? I think you have covered that.
I think it's very important. I think it's very important, and you don't have to see it from a point of view of self grandiosity. For example, have you ever been to an army party where nobody knows anybody, but they will come and introduce themselves and say, I am so and so, I am this, I am that, and all that. And therefore, you are not left in tandem. And I have given, what were we talking about? Sorry.
How important and authentic is brand you?
Yes. The brand you is very important because you don't have to see it from a point of view of self grandiosity. You can see it from the other person's point of view. The other person may be wanting some help, and you can give that help. You can be a leader. You can be a thought leader. Why are they coming to you? I'm not talking about myself in this. I'm talking about anybody. I went to a college yesterday. By the way, it was yesterday, not today. And that is for Sudhakar. And I went there, and there was a lady who was making some brownies, and she wanted help. And why is she coming to me? Because I could put her onto a digital agency. And I said, the way to promote you is by talking about you to other people and get more orders. She was getting very few orders. Now, I don't know why, because I ordered today, and it came, by the way, just before you all started this. And it's very good. It's very good. So I am glad that I ordered it. I bought it. So I can promote it with authenticity now. And why am I doing all this? Just to help. That's all. I'm not getting any cut.
Yes, I think, what I can understand from this is also that the audience that you serve, I mean, in this case, there was somebody else who came and sought help from you. There is a certain value that you can pass on based on brand you. And then in this case, you have illustrated exactly what you've done. It's not necessarily that it always what is projected about you. It could also be something which is not projected about you, but is very inherent about you. The second question here is about, ma'am, how do you measure value when you talk about brand you? I mean, how do you know whether you're traveling the journey? How do you measure? Are there are tangible things, there are intangible things. Are there any measures to know whether you're going in the direction that you've set for yourself? As also see, to what extent this has been successful.
I think that brand statement that I was talking about, which is the next step, it has to be true to yourself. Otherwise, you are not saying it, Like I changed it because so many people told me that they don't like it. And therefore, I changed it to something very mild. And somebody, a friend of mine, called me from abroad, from Dubai, and saying, please don't change it. You know, he was so anxious that I should stick to what I want to do and not saying that I'm a calm person, I said in my affirmation.
So I think what I can understand from this is that first is that, the brand statement is the powerful central, the words, the vision, which you can compare with and see
Yes.
whether you are delivering value and whether you're moving that particular path. So I think the brand statement is very important.
Very important.
Very important.
It's very important. That's why I said, as the next step, that is what you have to do.
And I think it takes quite a bit of time to crystallize and
Yes.
write that statement.
Absolutely.
Not that easy.
Absolutely. It's not easy at all.
And I think you also said that one can relook at it and that you did change something about it, though certain people did not exactly look at it that way, but
Yeah.
you have done some change.
Yes, correct.
So there is a certain degree of evolution in this too, in terms of this brand me, based on the feedback and the communication and the kind of journey that you travel. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Then I think there is a vital question. The next one is a vital question. How does one find, recognize, and nurture the brand within?
How do you recognize the brand within you?
Find, recognize, and nurture this brand within. How do you do that? A lot of audience members are interested in knowing how to start and move ahead on this.
Okay. Can you just repeat that question again? It's a very important question, I think.
How does one find, recognize, and nurture the brand within?
How do you find,
recognize, and nurture the brand within?
What do you want to be? That is important to know. What is it important to you? Like for me, it's important for me to be able to be standing on my own feet, right? An independent person. And another person need not be like that. So what is it that people say behind you when you're not there, as Jeff Bezos says? Am I answering the question?
Yes, ma'am, you are moving in that direction. I think one of the first things that you've said is identify things which are of utmost value to you.
Yes, exactly.
And it needs some self-reflection. Sometimes it cannot be fleshed out so easily. Maybe
Yes.
it's very vague. Maybe it needs somebody else's help. But one needs to identify those values and then crystallize what are the most important ones and then start building around that. This is what I could understand. And also reflect it with what people say about you behind your back. Toss it up and then you kind of marry them and then move ahead. This is what I could understand, ma'am.
Correct. I think you're paraphrasing it much better than I can.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. I think, with all the wisdom that you bring to the table, there are quite a bit of insights, and particularly do house, simple do house. I think that brand statement is a simple do how. This values that one has, they're all simple do house. And I think from, children onwards, people perhaps, you have not yet started working, they can start adopting this. And then they can start evolving from this. I think those are very, very important points here. This is what I could take away from this cluster. Thank you, ma'am. I'm handing it back to Professor Rao for the next cluster.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Prasad. This is a very interesting session with ma'am. I think some of the most intriguing questions are coming up now, and our participants have asked some questions that are going to be very useful to them. And this conversation is absolutely targeted at making it work for them. Ma'am, I have a very simple set of questions, short answer questions probably. If you wish to answer it elaborately, you can do that. In today's world of proliferation of social media, the lines between professional life and personal life are blurring. So what, according to you, is the biggest challenge in building personal brand?
It's important. It's very funny that you're talking about that, about how things are changing, because I was just reading about another lady who is working from her house and she has no place in the workplace. And she says that she can be anywhere. She can be anywhere and work. And I asked the question that what happens when people have to work as a team, like a copywriter and an art director, or a servicing person who has to, if it's an agency, it's communication, then, the two are married together. And it's a question of, we used to try and do that ourselves, which is a person who is in charge is waiting, and one person sends it, and then he replies, and the other person sends it, and then they reply, and goes on and on. But it takes a lot of time, time and patience, and also internet facilities. Am I answering your question? No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I think in today's modes of working, yes, the lines are blurring, but it is very important that you create your own visibility, your own discoverability by working very well. But in all modes, it's not possible. For example, if people work from home in a creative environment like advertising or various other functions, those functions are actually iterative in process. You need to go over it again and again and give feedback live. And instead of that, if you do sequentially online, then there is a break to the creative process and it doesn't work very well. That chemistry will miss. So therefore it is going to affect.
That's exactly the point. And I asked that question, but I haven't got an answer to it as yet.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I asked him to do.
Yes. So, ma'am, based on your enormous experience in the advertising world, what are the 2 or 3 important ways in which branding has evolved? Branding in general has evolved from 80s to now, in the last, say, 3-4 decades, how it has evolved. Any top 2 to 3 pointers which can help the audience understand how it is evolved?
Well, in today's world, I think some shoe brand, is it Adidas? I don't know.
Adidas, yes.
Adidas, which says that they don't mind showing even a woman with bare breasts to communicate. Okay. And that is not allowed earlier. So I'm saying a brand is the, you don't talk about the brand as a person or as a product in between, inside. You could talk about the experience, It could be, I wish I could draw it out, but it could be like Nike. Nike is nothing to do with the shoe anymore. Nike is to do with that whole aspect of that it is, what is Nike? Nike is not a shoe.
Yes.
Shall I just Google it? Yeah.
No problem. Nike is a brand which makes sports apparel, which includes shoe and various other apparel as well. But essentially what you have told us, ma'am, is that advertising and branding has evolved over a period of time. Brands are no longer about their products. Brands are about the experiences and the emotions that they create. And they are taking bold themes. As in the past, it was not so bold. Now they take real issues and bold issues. They don't hesitate to communicate. And some of the imagery that is hitherto considered as taboo or hitherto considered as conservative is now openly, boldly talked about. The issues that they talk about is no longer product features. The issues they talk about are about collective consciousness, about values, equality, diversity, and inclusiveness. That is what some of these brands stand for. And that is the evolution of brands in the last 4 decades. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
That's very nicely put. Thank you. I think you and Mr. Prasad, Mr. R. Prasad, Dr. R. Prasad, I think both of you have done a much better job than I could have done. Thank you so much.
Over the years, we have learned from you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is, what are your views on print media versus digital media, say in the next 5 years? How do you think that is going to evolve?
Well, print media is dead, right? Print as in terms of, I'm seeing something in newspapers today, full page ads. I mean, nothing can be less than a full page ad nowadays, by the way. Not a quarter page, not a half page, but full page. And in full page, what are they saying? Nothing they are saying. You know, Zinda Tilismat, Sania Mirza is promoting it. And she says one word, and it's very bad. And there was a full page ad on Kalanjali, for example. And digital is the way to go, because as I was talking about this lady with the brownies, she is got to go digitally, right? Because no one can afford print anymore. Print is like casting a stone into a river, you know, and you might catch somebody, you might not catch, and that's it. There's nothing focused or anything between. There used to be a paper only for advertising people, and that was very reasonable to advertise in it. It was called The Edge or something. And you know, you don't have that now. Now you're competing with soaps and toothbrushes and toothpaste and computers and cars and everybody is talking the same thing. Whereas in digital, you can approach the people that you want. Like if it's a financial statement, you don't have to go and compete with soaps. You can go to a financial site and talk about your financial product over there.
Great. So the takeaways for us is that print is costly and digital is affordable.
Yes.
Small brands to big brands, digital is the way to go. And in a manner of speaking, you said that print is like throwing a stone in a river and you don't know where it goes, which means it is not as measurable as digital is. And I think,
but at the same time, digital advertising, it also requires a budget. You know, I was talking about being a startup mentor for startups, and they all talk about digital and social media as if it's free. Nothing is free in life. You know, why should you repeat the film unless it's a good film, you know?
Yes.
And therefore, to make a good film, you need a good script, and you need to you need to spend a little money on it. Otherwise, it's not going to be great.
Yes, you can't avoid the basic costs.
Yes, you got to have some basic costs, and you have to put that money for it. Many people think that is free. No, it's not. Nothing is free in life. There are no free lunches.
Great point. You're saying that digital is not free, although there could be that kind of impression. It could be a little inexpensive compared to print, but it is not free. Yes. Basic costs will have to be borne by the startup organizations. That's a nice takeaway for the startups. And digital can be customized as per the target segment, as per the target group. And you can talk in the right channels, right portals, right websites about your product, and you can reach based on the profile of your customers. You can start talking to them. So it's largely customizable and personalized communication that is possible with digital.
Yeah.
Ma'am, one last question in this cluster, and that is sometimes it happens. I'm sure in your experience you would have come across many times handling so many brands. Sometimes it happens that your image gets tarnished, the brand image gets tarnished, sometimes due to the factors beyond your control. How do we, in such a situation, how do we change perceptions? How do we rebrand ourselves?
Well, I can give you an example of the famous Coca-Cola and Pepsi. You know what happened in my friend's house in the garden? There were some pests. And the gardener said, shall I go and get some Pepsi Cola? And put it on it. Because that whole thing about pest control and all that is there. And I think it is important not to talk about things at the time, but earlier. For example, okay, you have talked about something that you have, it's happened, right? It's happened and you can't do anything about it. It's already happened. So how do you reposition? Reposition. I think repositioning is you have to be honest and you have to be little factual. But first of all, honesty. And honesty means, like, for example, we did a campaign where we actually apologized. And that is a bold step for any advertiser. And I would say that, first of all, keep quiet, because the more you talk, the worse it gets. And maybe a lot of people wouldn't have heard about it till then. And then you will see two advertisers talking to each other almost. So, for example, one of my clients, the newspaper put an article saying that he has lost his famous, what do you call it? I'm trying to be vague about the client. Okay, I can't mention the client by name or anything, but that client, it could be ICFAI, for example, or it could be Voxen. It could be an institution where you get negative press that they have lost something, and it is not true. And what they were saying is that they will send their best person to talk to that editor. And I said, just keep quiet. Just let it go. Okay. And that was the best advice at that time.
I think very, very strong lessons have come out of this conversation, ma'am, especially this point of once your image gets tarnished, how do you rebrand yourself, reposition yourself? You advised us that with the examples of Pepsi Cola or with any other example, the important points that you have communicated are: one, be very honest and be truthful. Apologize in case there is anything happen, because in businesses things can happen, things can go wrong. Yes. In products or services, there could be a product quality that goes wrong, and customers discover that and they try to make a lot of song and dance about it, in the sense a lot of hue and cry about it. And in terms of service also, it can happen. For example, for one airlines, leading airlines in this country, something has happened which should not have happened. So if the advertising is a communication, but through that tool, if they apologize, then things would normalize. And initially, if nobody knows about it, keep quiet. But just in case it is going viral, in today's world, there is every chance that things can go viral. But you need to step in, be honest, put out the communication, and also mention that what are the benefits that you have. For example, a product like cola, it could be any brand, the health activism that we are witnessing in the country can lead to some problems. And therefore, you need to plan it much in advance, kind of plan B, kind of worst case scenarios one have to draw and be ready with. I think those things will help. And then if anything really, really goes wrong beyond all the measures of caution that you have taken, then apologize, be bold. I mean, it calls for boldness to apologize. And I'm sure this kind of work will help us reposition or rebrand ourselves from a tarnished image. So thank you very much, ma'am. That was a very good point.
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting up with my problem.
Thank you, ma'am. The next, what I will do now is I will request Professor Prasad to come back for a quick cluster of maybe a question or two, and then I'll come back to wrap up. We are already hitting 9 p.m. The promised 60 minutes is already over, but I request you, ma'am, to bear with us for maybe another 10 minutes or so, and we'll wrap up the session. Professor Prasad, quickly for you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I think the most important question in this cluster is what I'll take up right now, and that is related to teachers and educational institutions. So what kind of values, what kind of branding, communication of these values would you like to suggest for teachers and educational institutions in today's world, where you have a context of online classes, diversions, lack of authenticity because of that, yes, and many other things. So what would you like educational institutions to do with respect to branding and teachers?
Teachers and branding.
Personal branding of teachers.
I think that first of all, we are, at my generation, we are very lucky to have escaped this pandemic, right? In that sense. But look at the small children, they have to do it. And the internet is not easy, and therefore the parents have a role in it. Parents have to be more interactive, and they have to be there with the children to make life more interesting. And as far as teachers are concerned, teachers and parents are the same, right? And an institution also needs to step up and be like a parent, according to me. I mean, the whole thing has to be more fun, more enjoyable, more participative. I will give you examples of Kerala, where I come from. You won't believe this, but groups of people, women there, they are trying to make it very lively, like trying to make it, one evening is a Japanese evening, and they will dance and they will sing and they will cook and things like that, because that's what they can do. But imagine doing that. Imagine the the energy required to do all that.
Thanks, ma'am. I think, what I can understand is that the pandemic has stepped up the challenges that both teachers and institutions face, of course, parents also. And moving ahead of what is done in the conventional mode by better engagement, better relationship, better caring in the parent teacher student relationship, as well as the institution student parent teacher relationship, through visible activities which may not have got done in the past.
Exactly.
And which may actually be require a lot of energy and rigor. Unlike in the past, it's called for to add to the brand as well as reinforce the brand in comparison to others and stand out and make a difference. I think this is what I could gather from what you said, ma'am.
Yes, very true, very true. I don't think you can rest on your laurels anymore. And for example, ICFAI, let's talk about an institution like ICFAI. ICFAI, and you are going to start an MBA college, right? And you need to step up, and you need to have people. For example, that college I went to yesterday, they were all going to do their masters, as if at the end of masters, some jobs are waiting for them. No, nothing is waiting for anybody anymore. Therefore, you have to have people waiting in your college to see that they get some opportunity elsewhere, outside after that MBA, what? That 1 year, you have to be holding their hands, and you have to give them chances. It's all very well to say we have 1 billion people, but have you been to a fair? Have you been to one of these employment exchange places? They look like dead cattle with their eyes. Eyes are not any life in those eyes. It's so sad, actually. And that is what is happening. You have to light it up. You have to give them some hope. Okay?
Yes. I think what I can also gather is that one needs to understand students a bit more, as well as the market realities right now a bit more, and go that extra mile in order to personalize their learning, their takeaways, as well as the outcomes, employability being an outcome, employment being an outcome, the outcomes that they achieve at the end of this journey. And the conventional ways in which we go about doing it are no longer sufficient, because this also calls for a one-to-one relationship.
Exactly. It's talking about relationships, right?
Absolutely. I think that we are also seeing when after we've launched this this fully online MBA program where there is no class, and that the needs of students are very, very different, particularly when they are working executives. And one of those things that they are very particular about is that they need to understand and do well in the exam, that the first stage, even before, and since they're working executives, the job issue comes up much later and in a different way, but that they need to do well and then qualify in the exam, because they're already managers. And many of them are already general managers, some of them vice presidents. And so the kind of extra mile that one goes in order to do that, beyond the lectures and beyond whatever else that one can do, is what they value. I think we need to reach what they value. This is what I can understand from what you say.
Not only that, like for example at ISB, ISB requires you to have some years of experience, right?
Yeah.
And one person from Singapore actually told me that the amount of money that they spent does not equate to the new salary that they're going to get. So I urge you to have some HR people on board who want to employ people out of your college after is your MBA 1 year or 2 years?
2 years, ma'am.
2 years. So in spite of people being experienced, like a vice president has to have 2 years, right?
Yes, this is a UGC regulation. ISB does not fall under that. So since we are a university.
Okay. Then you need 2 years, and then after 2 years, what?
Absolutely. After
That's
2 years, what?
You have to promise in the beginning only.
Yes. I completely agree with that, ma'am. There must be a destination.
Yes.
There must be a journey towards a destination that both the institution as well as the student is able to see. A journey.
Journey. You're right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
ma'am.
a lot.
I hand it back to Professor Rao to wrap it up.
Oh, thank you very much. We are having lots of questions, but I'll restrict these questions to just two, ma'am. Two last questions, and then we'll be done with the session. I will not hold you for a long time. The first question in this cluster is, why do you think is the first impression the last impression? One of the participants wanted to know this.
Okay. The first impression is when you come into a room. Okay. That is the first impression. When you come into a room, you haven't even opened your mouth. You haven't spoken, but you cast an impression. And that is a very, very important part of your persona, if I may say so. You haven't opened your mouth as yet. After opening your mouth and your voice and what you say forms very small part of that first impression. You can Google all this. And therefore, and what was your question? I'm sorry.
Why is the first impression the last impression?
Well, as I said, it's very important not to interview the person that you are going for. Please go into their website. Everybody has a website and a visiting card nowadays. So go and study that website. Study it from one end to the other end. It takes a little time and it takes a little patience, but do it. And therefore, if you must, I'm talking about the first impression being you want something out of the other person, right? You want either their business or you want to be hired or you want something out of that other person. Right. And therefore, it's very important what is your first impression, the impression that you make with your knowledge about them. That of course is speaking, but are you on time? Don't ask at the last minute for the directions. Do 1 day earlier if you want, but be on time. That's very important. May not be important nowadays, I don't know.
It is.
I find myself waiting for all the plumbers and the carpenters and all these people. They say they will come in the morning when they plan to come only in the afternoon. But why don't they just say it? Correct. No, they won't say it. They'll make you wait at home the whole day. That's why I said that unless you are a plumber, you want to be reached. You don't want to be like that teacher who doesn't want to be contacted.
Yes, ma'am. So pertinent takeaways for us is that first impression could be a deciding factor in the outcomes for which you are actually going for a meeting or attending an interview. This transaction could be result oriented in your benefit if you do a lot of homework, study about them, arrive on time, appear nice and neat, and invest your time emotionally and functionally, that you are quite serious and keen on the purpose of the meeting. So I think the first impression, therefore, will be almost a deciding, play a deciding role in the outcome of the meeting. So therefore, it is extremely important. Thank you very much, ma'am. The second question I have from one of the participants is image consulting a sought after role?
Is image consulting?
A sought after role.
A sought after role. Okay. I heard it as a sort of role. That's why I asked you to repeat it. Sought after role. I think so. I think image is very important, and that is why coaching also. You know that Condoleezza Rice is supposed to have said that for her a mentor was very important, but if she had looked for someone like herself, she would have found another black person, and she didn't want that because the world is dominated by white people, white men, white old men. And so she wanted a white old man to be her mentor.
The beauty of the point that you narrated here is that apart from building, or the process of building your image requires some coaching and mentorship. Identify a mentor who will be able to align you with the rest of the world, as in the example that you have given of Condoleezza Rice. I think that's a very, very important point. You have a very unique way of communicating these things, ma'am. Very short and crisp, but extremely powerful. One needs to be quite alert while listening to you to pick up these nuggets. So thank you very much. One another question that is beaming on the screen I would like to ask is, this is interesting. Madam, why we need to worry about what others say behind our back? Isn't our locus of control within self? So the question is, why should we worry?
I will answer this by saying that you can't stop people from talking, right? Or gossiping. But, you know, for example, I have been gossiped about and I have been talked about, but there's nothing that you can stop it. If you try to stop it, they will start more and more. But if there is some truth in what they are saying behind your back, then that is what you have to reflect on. You have to reflect and see, and that is very important. Where is that? Jeff Bezos said it, right?
Yes. When you're not there in the room, people talk about you. That is your branding.
Yes, correct.
I'll read out, ma'am. Your brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room.
And the person saying, why is it important, right?
Yes.
It's important to know what people are saying behind you, no?
It is more in terms of reality check. It is more in terms of what kind of measures you have taken to be perceived in a particular manner. Is it aligning with your desired image, or is it going in some other way? So therefore, it is important to know what people are saying behind your back. So if our personal branding goes wrong, then they think something else about us. If it goes right, it aligns with our own targeted positioning or targeted image.
For example, let me tell you about myself. You know that famous sentence of mine? A lot of people don't agree with it, but I agree with it and I'm going ahead with it.
So therefore, one last question to you, ma'am. So when you wake up every day in the morning, so the devil is saying the same thing again to you?
The devil is saying?
Is the devil saying the same thing to you again and again every single day?
And the devil is not saying to me, devil is saying to himself, oh crap, she's up. And therefore she's going to do some rubbish against me. That's what the devil is not saying to me.
Yeah, okay.
I'm giving the devil something to think about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think
Professor Rao, I just want to add, I'm remembered of that famous Bombay saying, you know, related to ma'am, tension lene ka nahi, dene ka nahi, dene ka hai. I mean, with respect to the devil.
Thank you very much. Dene ka nahi.
Very nice. So thank you very much, ma'am. I think we have enjoyed conversing with you. Just one last shout out to audience. Does anybody want to ask any question? You can raise your hand. We'll open up the window. You can directly ask the question.
You know, poor things, it's come down to 43 now.
No, it's okay. It happens. Those are our, yeah. Okay, if two participants have raised the hand, let me, I will open Shweta Anand, please talk. Please ask your question. Open your video.
Yes, I can see her. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. First of all, thank you so much for such an engrossing session which you delivered. Now my question is, like, what are some of the key tips you'll give for a mentor, because I'm into education field and I deal with students directly. So what would be some key tips that could be utilized in dealing with learners, and especially they are all senior level management or middle level management executives? So how what are those tips would be?
Yeah, it is like this. Based on your enormous experience of mentoring various people, coaching them at senior level and middle level, she's also now getting into the career. She's already there in that career of coaching senior and middle level managers. So what are the 2 things or 3 things that she has to keep in mind, which will work in her favor? She'll be very successful because of that.
Can I add a point?
Yes.
For instance, learners who are dealing with senior working executives, they don't find time. So they always have this immediate, response in the mind that they don't have time. Now, if you want to encourage them to put in that little bit of time which is needed to learn, what kind of tips, mentoring tips would you? Just an example.
Okay. Shweta, first of all, you have to have a relationship with everyone around you. Okay. That is the students that you're talking to. How many students? 40, 50, 20? How many? How many are you talking about? Tell me.
Ma'am, it's around 50 to 60 we deal with. Yeah.
60 students at one
almost
time.
100. Yeah.
Okay, that's a
Not
lot.
at a single instance, ma'am. At different instances, ma'am.
So at one time, how many do you have?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't got the question.
I said that if you are talking about 100 totally, then at one time, how many do you deal with?
Ma'am, at one time, one certainly.
No, can you have a
it depends,
ma'am. Can you find out what is it that they want in life? Like yesterday at that college, I was talking to maybe more than 100 people. And I said that how many of you want to do working after this or do masters? And almost everyone put up their hand to do masters, as if after 2 years, masters will give them a job. I said, if you can't find a job now, where is a job going to be there after masters? And suppose we were like the West, and where you have to find your own money. Why don't you help your parents? What will you do to earn a little bit of money? You know that rich man, poor man, dad, that story? So it's like that, you have to start by understanding what that person wants in life. Like one of the girls yesterday, she said that she wants to go back to Mehboob Nagar because it's her college, her own college. And she can do her masters in whatever the subject is, and then go and lecture there. That's waiting for her. That's all right. But someone else wants to finish BA and then do a 3 exam part to go become a police officer. So I could only say that, have you seen those exams? Have you seen those questions? Because I remember one guy came to us, stayed with us, and he hadn't even seen the questions. And I said, that's very important to see what kind of questions they ask. A previous paper, you must see those papers. And the third person, she has very conveniently, she said that she's going to Canada and that it costs 7 lakhs. And that 7 lakhs is taken care of. By whom? I don't know. Must be the parent. So I said that do you know how much it costs to go there? Please get your visa, get your this thing. Because I happen to have found somebody else who went to Canada. And therefore, I was able to speak a little bit about Canada. And I said a lot of area in Canada is too cold for anyone to stay. Even the Canadians can't stay there because it's too cold. And Canada is one of the most expensive places. Why? Because they will take care of you afterwards. All the taxes, all the things that, COVID and everything else, they will take care of it. So you have to know these things before going. And she hadn't found anybody, nothing she knew. I was talking about my own experience in an orphanage where everyone was bothered about their health because they knew, but if they don't have health, they will have nothing. And after health, guess what they had in mind? Wealth, health and wealth. How do you get wealth? You get wealth by working hard, saving, and that's how you get wealth, isn't it? You don't have an uncle who is going to give you money or a grandfather, and therefore it depends on yourself. Okay, Shweta has gone off. Then who else? Sudhakar?
Yes.
I think just to summarize, I think what I've understood is one has to contextualize.
Yes.
Each of the cases you narrated, the context was different, and then you should figure out what is the door you need to open into their need. And then you open that door, they think a bit more ahead. And then you go into that journey.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
So, ma'am, anybody else? Ma'am, your friend Shiba is there, but would she like to ask any question? So, what we'll do is we will conclude here, ma'am. We are already at 9:30, 1.5 hours of the session, much more than what we have actually indented for. So, thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to, while thanking you, just capture a few bullet points so that we completely stay with the whole purpose and essence of this leadership conversation we have just had with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me identify a few bullet points. There is a brand within each one of us, and it is very important to identify that brand. And there is a methodology to identify, nurture, build, and take advantage of that personal brand. And building personal brand is not about bragging oneself or is about self-aggrandizement. It is about making oneself discoverable, making oneself available, and making oneself useful to others. In a manner of speaking, personal branding involves knowing about yourself first, the self-awareness, what you're good at, what are your strengths, and what you would like to be. And then that important self-study and connect is the starting point. Once you know where you would like to go, I think you need to craft yourself in terms of being discoverable in those circles. If you want to be in the film industry, then I'm sure you should be in those circles and you should be known. And whatever is the little bit of talent that you have, that should be displayed. And in the social groups or in the physical groups, I think you should be known as the great flutist, just as an example that you are, or you are a character artist. So that the short films that you make or the opportunities that you have already obtained, those can be showcased very well online and offline. And then you will be looked at as the next best resource for the industry whenever they will have to talk about you, whenever they will have to depend on you, whenever they'll have to invite you to play another role in another film that is in the making. So making oneself discoverable through a set of methodologies is personal branding, and personal branding will be not just useful to you, it will be useful to many others, the industry, the people around you. You will be a leader. If you have your thought process aligned properly and consistently, then you will become a thought leader in a particular domain, in a particular area of thought and action. So personal branding is not just, for example, in education, a lot of teachers and professors think that they should not brag about themselves. They are shy of publicity. They think that it is a publicity stunt. Large majority of them still think like that. As ma'am has explained, it should not be thought like that. We should be discoverable. We should have a place and a number and a card to be contactable. If someone wants to talk to you, if someone wants to network with you and learn from you, and you have a possibility of learning from them, that will just miss out if you are not available with them. If you don't have a card, if you don't have a contact or a website, or any place where they can reach you and understand who you are. The real you, your school of thought is not understood by anyone. So therefore, you're actually drawing a black curtain on yourself, not making yourself visible to anyone in the world, which means you are not only depriving yourself of the opportunities, but you're also depriving others of possible opportunities of give and take, possible opportunities of learning and building oneself. So how is it going to be useful to organizations and large institutions, education institutions, corporate world, NGOs? How personal branding is going to help them, or is it only about the individual? I quote one result and a report. There is a report called Weber-Shandwick's report. It is called the State of Corporate Reputation in 2020. It's in a worldwide survey among 2,000 and odd global executives. The responses that they received are that 71% of these respondents said it is important for senior leadership, other than the CEO, to have a highly visible public profile. 51% of them acknowledged that senior leadership's participation on offline and online platforms played a vital role in the corporate reputation of the organization. And 82% of the people are more likely to trust your company when your senior executives are active on social media. These are the findings of the results. Your personal branding is extremely important. It is going to be a business imperative from the employer branding perspective. And therefore, one needs to carefully craft oneself, define oneself. We see in this world a lot of top executives writing books. It is a piece of their school of thought. They have organized their experiences to brand oneself as an established author, and thereby the organization you're attached with is also getting the due recognition in terms of nurturing a thought leader. So therefore, the twin entities, the individual as well as the organization, will get benefited and recognized. And therefore, one is looked upon as a role model. As Madam has explained, you will come across as a role model. In today's world, teachers can become good role models. In online world, role models are missing. So it is more important to make the classes engaging and interesting, and also come across as a role model by making it so creative, making it so participative. And similarly in organizations, there are juniors and there are peers who are looking for role models, and the egoless kind of, borderless kind of interactions with people, as ma'am has explained through her own personal example, we will be able to learn, ask questions, and keep building self. I think the journey of building oneself, a meaningful self, and being useful to the society is going to be much, much stronger if personal branding is focused upon. These are some of the very, very interesting bullet points that ma'am has talked about. And another important point is that when personal branding starts with aligning yourself with the truth. For example, advertising, various brands will talk about something which is actually not true. Similarly, individuals also, if they don't focus on the points which are not true to the individual's personality, if one person is not empathetic and not interested in helping people in the street, why should he or she talk about that? So it is a false reputation one is trying to build. That will go fat very soon. It will not sustain. It is not sustainable. So one has to be truthful, and by being truthful, one needs to attain what is called moral courage, and moral courage is the foundation for leadership. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have learned about how personal branding will be a very crucial step for making yourself a leader. And these leadership lessons we have learned from Ms. Santha John in this 90-minute discussion that we have had today. We are so thankful to you, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time, and you have prepared you for this session so well, and you have tested the session through Zoom yesterday. 1 day in advance you have tested. These are all lessons for youngsters. These are lessons for all of us around the screen to learn from a veteran like you and practice those things in our day-to-day life and work. So I can't thank you enough on behalf of our Vice Chancellor who joined. Some of the leaders at all ICFAI business schools around the country have joined, and senior teachers from various other institutions have joined. And I said some people from the advertising industry, some from other parts of the country and the world also have joined. We want to thank all of them for their brilliant questions that they have raised. They wanted to know from you. They wanted to learn your responses as well. We want to thank them for making this so interesting. So we would like to take your leave, ma'am. And once again, we thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I've learned from you, Sudhakar.
You're our teacher, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next Friday at 7:30 p.m. with yet another leader from the AdTech world. Mr. Suresh Reddy, the chairman and CEO of Brightcom Group, is going to talk about how we need to look at the world with a digital slant, and how Brightcom has actually pursued that path by creating a wonderful digital marketing organization, which is global with respect to its clientele. And that is based out of Hyderabad. We are very proud of it, but we are going to see a leader who is having a very strong entrepreneurial background, very, very highly respectable educational background, both in India and abroad. And we look forward to that session on next Friday, and that is 25th of February at 7:30 p.m. See you all. Till then, do take care and take good care of yourself from third wave. Third wave is not over. we need to be careful and maintain those COVID appropriate behaviors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much on behalf of all of us. Good night.